Good evening, and welcome to Tales and Cocktails. Our tale tonight is by George S. Kaufman, and to give you a little briefing on him, he was born in 1889, died in 1961, and was the most successful American playwright of the 1920s and 1930s. He was the drama critic of the New York Times and was a member of the Algonquin Round Table. His first theatrical success was Dulcie in 1921, and in the following decades, almost always writing in collaboration with others. He turned out hit after hit, including Of Thee I Sing with the Gershwins and Maury Riskin, Dinner at 8 with Edna Ferber, and The Man Who Came to Dinner with Morse Hart. He also wrote The Coconuts, Animal Crackers, and A Night at the Opera for the Marx Brothers. And there's a story that, of course, the Marx Brothers were known for being off-script, and at a particular performance of the Coconuts, Kaufman was standing at the back of the house, talking quietly with a friend, and then suddenly went, "Wait a minute, I think I heard one of my lines," which tells you a lot about Kaufman and a lot about the Marx Brothers. So, this piece by George S. Kaufman was written in 1957 for The New Yorker, and it is entitled Annoy Kaufman Incorporated. For some time now, I have suspected the existence of an organization whose scope and energies are so enormous that they stagger the imagination. I am not prepared to say with any certainty that such an organization exists, but there are in my life that can be explained only by the theory that a major plan is in operation. Plan so vast and expensive that it's almost impossible to envision it. The organization that carries out this plan must spend millions of dollars annually to achieve its object. It must have, great suites of offices and thousands upon thousands of employees. On a guess, I would put its running cost at $10 million a year. If anything, the figure may be a presumption. I have christened it Annoy Kaufman Incorporated, though I will admit that I cannot find that title in any lists of corporations. But the facts are incontrovertible. First, there is the matter of going to the bank. Let us say that I have run out of money and I'm required to cash a small check. Now, no one knows that I'm going to the bank on that particular morning. There's nothing about it in the papers. At best, such an announcement would get only a few lines on a back page. George S. Kaufman is going to the bank this morning to cash a check. We wish him all success. Something like that. But not a word is printed. No one knows about it. As a matter of fact, I've probably not made up my mind to go until about 11 o'clock. Yet the organization is prepared. It immediately arranges that half a dozen big companies should be drawing their payroll money that morning, and that each of them should send a clerk to the bank with a list of payroll requirements. So many $5 bills, so many dollar bills, so many quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. Next, it is arranged that all these people should get to the teller seconds ahead of me. Now, this takes doing. Remember, the organization has not known just which morning I was planning to go to the bank. So for weeks and weeks, these clerks have been held in readiness somewhere. And suppose I stop to talk to a friend and arrive 5 minutes later than expected. Obviously, several relays of clerks must be kept on reserve in a corner of the bank, awaiting a signal. Moreover, these are not people who are just pretending to be cashing payrolls. The banks would never stand for that. No, they are people from real companies, companies founded by the organization and kept in business for years and years, probably at an enormous loss to the bank windows ahead of me. And it is not always the same people who stand in front of me. It is different ones. This, in turn, means a large number of separate companies to maintain. These companies run factories, keep books, pay income taxes, hold board meetings, advertise on television, pension their employees. Surely this side of the enterprise alone must run to a pretty. My next example may sound like a simple and inexpensive thing to manage, but it isn't. It has to do with the engineer's little boy, Danny. Danny is 6 years old. In fact, he has been 6 years old for the 35 years that I have been making overnight train journeys. I suppose that actually they keep on having an engineer's little boy born every year, but even that takes planning. Anyhow, from begging his father to let him run the locomotive some night. For years and years his father has been saying no. Then finally the night comes. "Can I run the engine tonight, Daddy?" asked Danny, who is too young to know about can and may. And his father says, "Yes, Danny boy, we have just got word that Kaufman will be on the train tonight, and he's very tired and needs a good night's sleep, so you can run the engine." The result being the neck-breaking stops and starts that keep me awake all night. The organization has, of course, the incidental expense of maintaining Danny in Chicago or Pittsburgh or Cleveland, as the case may be, until I am ready to make the return trip. Danny's father obviously cannot wait over to take care of him. He must go back to running the engine properly on the nights when I am not traveling. So the organization must keep branch offices in Chicago and Pittsburgh and Cleveland and provide someone to take care of Danny and schools for him to go to and somebody to make sure that he doesn't practice and so learn how to run the engine better before I make my return trip. This seemingly small part of the business can run to fantastic sums over the years. But the bank and Danny are, after all, relatively minor matters. Once done with, they are over till the next time. I come now to the major opus. The Basic Incorporated was founded. Years ago, when I moved to New York, I noticed that a little man in a gray overcoat was watching me closely as I took the ferry from Jersey City to 23rd Street. I don't know why, but I think his name was Mr. Moffett. At all events, Mr. Moffett was the first person off the ferry boat when it docked. Hurriedly joining his pals in a midtown office, Mr. Moffett reported as follows: "Boys, he's here. We can take out incorporation papers in Albany tomorrow and go to work. In a day or two, I'll have all the dough." Now, you may think it arrogant of me to claim that the entire rebuilding of New York City, at present in full bloom, came about solely as a result of my arrival here. But I can only cite the facts. No sooner did I move to a given neighborhood than the wreckers were at work on the adjoining building, generally at 8 o'clock in the morning. The news we are all now familiar was first used early one morning as a weapon against the slumber of none other than myself. All dates and names of streets are on file in the office of my attorney. Naturally, I kept moving to new neighborhoods in quest of peace, but the boys were always ready and waiting. Can you blame me for feeling that it was I, and I alone, who unwittingly charted the course of the city's onward sweep? Only once slip up. Acting without sufficient research, they put up Lever House just to the south of me, unaware that my bedroom was on the other side of the apartment. Discovering their error, they, of course, quickly brought the property to the north and went quickly to work. Well, sir, heads rolled in the office that morning, I can tell you. Mr. Moffett, I like to think, shot himself. but I suspect he was immediately succeeded by his son, has functioned so efficiently that I am now exactly 37 years behind in sleep, with only an outside chance of making it up. With all that on their hands, you wouldn't think they'd have time for congressional lobbying, too, would you? This ultimate move came to light during a visit of mine to Washington a few weeks ago. Having been made suspicious over the years by my dealings with the Internal Revenue people, I went to the trouble of looking up the original text of the income tax law as filed in the Library of Congress. There it was. Paragraph D, Clause 18, just as I had suspected. The taxpayer, in computing the amount of tax due to the government, may deduct from his taxable income all legitimate expenses incurred in the course of conducting his business or profession, except, it added, in the case of George S. Kaufman. And that incorporated by the inimitable George S. Kaufman. And that was a delight to read to you for Tales and Cocktails tonight. Oh, my dears, have a lovely week, and I look forward to seeing you next Wednesday at this time on Tales and Cocktails. Good night.